Hey everyone, I'm NornQueenAlexis and welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the lore discussion series. Today we are taking a look at the next book in the Psychic Awakening series, The Ritual of the Damned, which pits the Grey Knights, the Dark Angels, against the treacherous foe of the Thousand Suns and Magnus the Red. So, joining me today we have Vicky the GM.
Hello.
And we have the legendary Mega Primor Captain Jono.
Dark Angels are green, so this is acceptable.
Green is best.
Green is best. So this story actually introduced Master Lazarus. If you guys don't know the story of Lazarus, Lazarus was a man revived by Jesus in the Bible. So it still does stick with the whole religious theme of the Dark Angels, being that they are fallen angels from Christianic mythology, like Belial, Azrael, Asmodai, Ezekiel. They have a few others, don't they? They quite literally have the fallen with them.
Yeah. Although Lazarus isn't an angel in any sense, he's just a dead dude.
That gets revived, similar to the story in here.
Pretty much.
So, let's dive right into this.
Now is our time. Such a platitude has fallen from the lips of lords, kings, and emperors since mankind's earliest days, and all were wrong. Every fiefdom, kingdom, and empire to this day has collapsed, no matter how optimistic and mighty they might have once been. The greatest realm in all of humanity's history holds on to the very precipice, dangling over dark oblivion. Each passing day sees its grip weaken. It is but my task, my purpose, to tread upon its digits, and it will fall. Now is our time. Those who used these words had no idea what time really meant. Their arrogance and ignorance knew no bounds, and for that they were punished with death and destruction. But we know time. We know the warp. We know its currents, its waves, its flows, its tributaries. Our power is almost limitless. Our knowledge almost total. Behold the signs. The galaxy is cut in twain. Sortarius is a bright light in the darkness of real space. Prospero, our home of old, has been reclaimed and is being rebuilt. We are in ascendancy, my sons. Never have we been stronger. Never has our foe been so weak. Those of humanity who have awakened, those I know to be the future of mankind, call for saviors, liberators, lords they can truly follow without question or doubt. I will provide that, and in turn they will do what is necessary. Even now I can sense their numbers growing, their yearnings to break their shackles strengthening, and their anger at their false overlords rising. I will call them to us, and they will come. When our labors are complete, the galaxy will tremble at our creation. Once we are unleashed, nothing will stop us. The false emperor will fall, and humanity will rise. Now, my sons, is truly our time, and forever shall it be so. Attributed to Magnus the Red.
Alright, so that's one heck of an opening. Magnus the Red seems to see the Psychic Awakening as his way of taking the galaxy over. Interesting, isn't it?
Well, taking humanity over.
Yeah. Strictly humanity.
Yeah. So one thing that, first thing that, while he's talking, I actually noticed, what's with look at the jars and jars in the actual, outlining artwork.
Oh yeah, they look like navigators' heads.
Yeah, they are navigator heads. That's kind of interesting. Interesting choice of artwork.
Yeah, and I'm also noticing that, so this is actually a good question, because a lot of people... Last time I heard of Magnus was during the Wrath of Magnus. Wasn't he supposed to be trapped or the webway?
Wrath of Magnus happened before Fall of Katie and all that.
Yeah, he did escape during the ending of Gathering Storm.
Okay.
I'm sure they'll mention it here.
And you can read about that in the Gathering Storm trilogy, which we will be getting to in the near future.
Oh, I'm excited for that.
That that actually should give us a bunch of context, which I'm looking forward to.
No, no, it doesn't.
It doesn't?
No.
But Creed is yeah,
But
but it's
Creed
got
is
Creed.
a badass.
All right.
The fate of the
So,
damned. Victor, if you would.
the emergence of the Great Rift, whilst inflicting untold misery on the Imperium, was a boon joyously welcomed by many of the Emperor's enemies. Magnus the Red and his 1,000 sons were no exception, and the Crimson King wasted no time in formulating new schemes and strategies to bring about his evil ends. Getting the Imperium perspective again, so that's that. Let's see. The 1,000 Sons. In the wake of the Great Rift's opening, the servants of Chaos enjoyed a freedom that had hitherto been unfathomable to even the most ambitious, fanatical, and twisted amongst them. Demons ran rampant on Imperial worlds, and entire systems were cut off from the rest of the galaxy, as vulnerable as a sea creature beached alone upon the shore. The winds of the Imperium had never blown more strongly, and the followers of the Chaos God Siege imbibed them deeply and hungrily. So yeah, funnily enough, there is also a Death Guard story, which has them wondering out loud why the Imperium isn't responding to them, because they invade a world and nothing happens.
There. What book was that?
That was...
Plague War?
No, it's from the Death Guard perspective. I think. Oh, Lords of Silence. That's it.
Ah, okay. Because I know in the Death Guard Codex, there's a battle which the Death Guard they are invading this planet, and Greyfax figures out their sacred number and hits them with 7 Death Strike missiles and kills their entire company.
Ah.
That's a thing that happens.
It is, and one thing I appreciate about this passage is the reference to the winds of the Empyrean, call back to the winds of magic from old fantasy.
Pretty much. The realms of chaos. Alright. Upon all of this, Magnus the Red smiled, his mind working over every exciting possibility brought about by the new reality. Sorcerers in their hundreds carried out his will with a new level of vigor, whether they knew it or not. They raised vast armies and hunted down treasures older than the Imperium itself. They sought out lore forbidden, hidden, and suppressed, a terrifying amount of which lay practically unguarded amidst the mayhem and disorder that beset much of the galaxy. Alright, so Magnus's nerds are pillaging the place.
Yeah, pretty much. Magnus being a nerd, seeing
Huh.
nerd-like things happen, telling his nerds to go gather stuff.
To gather nerd things.
Yeah. They just have to remember
Yeah.
to stay 6 feet apart.
Wouldn't it be 9 feet apart
Oh, yeah.
for them?
Yeah, it would.
Alright. After 10,000 years of absence, Magnus returned to Prospero, the world upon which he had been raised. Though the planet was in utter ruin following its devastation 10 millennia ago, Lehman Russ, Magnus began the process of restoring it to a level of magnificence beyond anything the masters of old, who mentored him as a youth, could have dreamed. He started with its vast librariums, collating knowledge and wisdom both old and new, in towers that glowed with brilliant ever-changing colors. He rediscovered treasures that had evaded even the most skilled of those who scoured Prospero for relics and caches of hidden text, and with these he planned to grow the strength of the 1,000 Suns to levels impossible for any foe to overcome. So, yeah, he's pretty much securing his holdings.
Yeah, rebuilding the pyramids.
Yeah. I like that. It's nice to see that finally Magnus is like when you listen to I think it's just 1,000 Suns in the Horus Heresy series. It is annoying how little Magnus does to defend Prospero back then, and then to see him here try and rebuild it.
It's also interesting after his Primarch book, where he essentially says that he would never return to Prospero because there was no point. He didn't care about material things when he was in the 30K. Now, with the coming of the Gathering Storm, he is once again... He's brought back into reality yet again, and he now sees that he needs the Materium because he needs to protect people. Or at least, in his twisted way, he needs to protect people. They're actually setting up Magnus to be the good guy.
Kind of, yes, maybe, no.
I think yes.
We'll see. Even as this great work of reconstruction continued apace, Magnus turned his cyclopean eye upon the wider galaxy and beheld the phenomenon he had long wished for. The Cicatrix Maledictum heralded an unforeseen growth in human psychic potential, something Magnus had wished humanity to explore without restriction since the Great Crusade. All of this checks out.
Yeah.
I mean, is he still holding a grudge for the Council of Nicaea?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, let's see. Are the Primarchs petty little children? Yes. Then of course
Oh.
he is.
I'm going to add just a tiny little bit extra because I forgot it. With the Imperium on its knee, Magnus knew that this was his time. Nothing would stop him. Okay, just keep going.
All right.
I was going to say, what was it? I do like how almost every edition of 40K has been... Actually, I don't know when this started, but there came a point where every edition started mentioning that more and more Psychers were being born.
Mm.
This is kind of a nice culmination of that. And it's a gigantic story beat, which is the Psychic Awakening.
Yeah. The whole opening of the Gork's Grin really just is really a really nice push without like messing with much. Like everything's still about the same in terms of like locations and characters, but now the story has moved forward. Like I would actually say Magnus is probably one of our most progressed characters over the course of this edition.
Pretty much. He's done a bunch of stuff.
Well,
And
let's continue.
let's see. All right. The Grey Knights. Few in the Imperium were as aware of the new threats that assailed humanity as the Space Marines of the Grey Knights chapter. No force that had ever been raised by mankind could meet the threat of the demon in the way the Grey Knights could, and their millennia of existence they had saved countless worlds from cataclysmic invasions, contained explosions of unreality, and cast an incalculable number of demons back into the hell from which they came. That's the Grey Knights in a nutshell.
I say nuh-uh and raise you Sisters of Silence.
Well, they were kind of forgotten both inside and outside of 40K, outside and inside the universe.
Yeah.
It's funny how the sisters have a plot point. A plot point of theirs is we were forgotten about, which is exactly what Games Workshop did.
Yep.
And one of the main Silent Sister characters is super, super salty about the whole thing.
And that's from the Throne series.
The Watchers of the Throne series.
Yep. And
Yeah.
you can actually buy that character now. She has
Oh,
a
yeah.
model.
She does, although her pose is awful.
Well, I mean-
I'm kind of indifferent about her pose.
Well, they also got that custodian with that like WTF hairline.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that guy. All right, we're straying pretty far now. So, never at any point in the chapter's long and noble history had their homeworld of Titan been so thinly garrisoned. Virtually all of its military might was dispatched on campaign in a valiant attempt to restore and maintain order across the Imperium, making haste from one world to the next without thought of recovery or rearmament beside that which could be achieved on the move. The cavernous halls and long corridors of the chapter's fortress monastery were as silent as the grave. Training weapons gathered on dust racks, untouched for months or even years. Maintenance chambers, normally alive with activity, were almost entirely dormant. So yeah, I can imagine that the chamber militant of the Ordo Malleus was kind of busy during this time.
Oh god, yeah.
Oh yeah, they even sent a squad to Terra to help with that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
And some
demonic
with Grey Fax.
invasion.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, that was a thing. They also sent some with Grey Fax to get the Eye of Night.
not too. Man, they must have been. Yeah, like that passage details how super, super busy they are.
Man, this is the complete opposite of the Deathwatch.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten to the Deathwatch yet. We'll
Oh,
read the White Dwarf when it comes out.
Well, you'd think that they'd be seeking help from other chapters and everything, like the Exorcists, the Sisters of the Sisters of Silence would be a huge asset to them, and they don't even mention the Ordo Malleus yet. Although I do want to point this out for everybody that is listening. The Grey Knights are a chapter that do not follow the Codex Astartes. They are one of the only chapters that do not follow the Codex Astartes. The Black Templar, on the other hand, do follow the Codex Astartes. There is an entire passage in it for Crusade fleets.
Although, if you do think about it, the Grey Knights did exist before the Codex did, so...
Yes, only by a few hundred years.
Didn't Gilliman write the Codex, like, less than a century after?
Interesting enough, in his Primarch book, he already wrote the Codex Astartes. It just wasn't published yet.
Oh, right. It just didn't apply to all the others.
It was in the theoretical, not the practical phase yet.
Right. All right. So that makes sense then, that they don't follow it because, well, they predate the actual publishing of the thing.
I think they weren't even in reality when it was being written.
True.
No, they were in reality. Their moon was put into the warp just after the Siege of Terra.
Right.
All right, let's see. There was but one part of the Citadel of Titan that did not appear completely abandoned. In the Chamber of Trials, home of the chapter recruitment and training, more neophytes than ever before underwent the incredibly arduous processes of becoming a Grey Knight. As the number of people with emergent psychic abilities grew across humanity's galactic realm, so did the Grey Knight's recruitment pool expand. It was a phenomenon of which they took full advantage. That's actually... That's a
really
nice
cool.
little... Yeah, that's a nice touch. That, yeah, sure, there's a bunch more psychers happening, but the Grey Knights don't really mind, because that just gives them more neophytes.
And you rarely hear of the Grey Knights actually getting neophytes. There is one story completely about it, but it's one neophyte.
I mean, it's mostly just them trawling the black ships.
Yep.
Really. So they don't really have to do much recruiting. They just go to the Scholasticus Icona and just say, "You look strong enough, come with us."
Yeah, that's another thing. How many psychers do you think they actually capture on the black ships themselves? Because some of them go to the Inquisition, some go to the Grey Knights, some go and be batteries, and some go to the Psychona.
I mean, the answer is all of them, but yeah. I get your point. It's probably, like, it's a lot. The black ships never stop, so it is kind of an endless tide of psychers.
It's fair enough.
Right. And the fact that more of them are showing up, that means that... is it? I forget. I'm sure
you can read more about black ships in the book Hammer and Anvil.
That's true. So, referencing that, did Sisters of Battle, like, take over the Sisters of Silence when it come to, like, crewing black ships while they were missing?
So, interesting enough, in the Watchers of the Throne series, the Sister of Silence in that talks about how some sisters still stayed to their obligations of the black ships. Some simply retired and just gave up their oaths and everything. And some pretended to just be Sisters of Battle.
Right.
So yeah, Sisters of Battle did step up and take over the black ships for the most part.
Yeah, and now that the sisters have their citadel on the moon back, the Silent Sisters, I'm guessing they are taking over the black ships again.
I would assume, but there's no direct lore about it yet.
Yeah, I would need a reference on that, but
I wish the Sisters of Silence would, just to keep things simpler, so that there's not two sisters. Go back to the name Anathema Sakana.
I think that was the new name. Well, I say new, the imperial designation they have.
Right.
All right. Never before had new recruits been more needed, for the chapter fought across many war zones, and their casualties mounted up on dozens of battlefields. Although the threat was great, the Grey Knights were determined to meet it. All right, that was the last little bit.
Well, it's actually interesting that they're talking about the Grey Knights losing.
Losing a bunch of, taking casualties, yeah, but that's because there's just so many of them fighting now.
I mean, if it was up to Ben Counter, not one of them would die, yet thousands of sisters would die.
Yeah, I was trying not to make reference to the Great Knight Omnibus, but I think it's going to be unavoidable by the end of
Ben Counter
Right.
at 1.
All right. Next up is the Dark Angels. Do you want me to handle the sidebar first?
Yeah, handle the sidebar.
Tolbag's armored boots crunched on crumbled rock and masonry. Flat, smooth areas amongst the rubble revealed where stone and glass had been melted and fused together by searing temperatures. He had not trodden here in 10,000 years. He remembered grand artifices of wisdom and learning, the hope and the wonder of that time, a happy, prosperous people. He remembered, too, the coming of the wolf. Malignant energies crackled around his gauntlets at the mere thought. We will rebuild, and they will know what we have suffered. So that's the Thousand Sun. Tolbag, why does that name sound familiar?
You could just do a quick lexiconum search for it.
True, let me...
John, would you like to take over the Dark Angels? They're green.
I will take over the Dark Angels also. Yeah, he's from the Armen books, Tolbeck is.
Oh yeah, I thought... Oh, right, he's off the Pyre. He's a pyromancer.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. Molten Beam. Alright. The Dark Angels. When the Great Rift tore the Dark Angels on the Rock, the chapter's vast asteroidal fortress monastery, found themselves caught in the region of space that became known as the Imperium Nihilus?
Nihilus.
There they fought war after war, battling for their very existence against the archenemy. The rock itself was tainted by the presence of demonic hordes, which maimed and killed indiscriminately. Hundreds of Dark Angels and warriors of their successor chapters were slain in the Darkmoor massacre. With the terrible engages in the Fenris Sinister,
you are cutting
firmly
out
in their
quite a
minds.
bit. So I'm just going to have Victor take over for it because you're just cutting out.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. With the terrible engagements in the Fenris systems imprinted firmly in their minds, the Sons of Caliban clashed with the diabolical forces of the Changeling and the Thousand Suns in the Stygius sector. Throughout this time, the Librarians were racked with visions. Some suddenly fell to their knees, clutching their heads in agony as they screamed in the middle of pre-battle briefings, training exercises, or private meditations. Others did not wake from terrible nightmares that dragged on painfully for days on end. Every report given to Ezekiel, Grand Master of the Librarians, told of drops of rain developing into vast deluges that drowned entire worlds, or sparks growing into planet-wide firestorms. It seemed that, despite mankind's newfound power, it was even more vulnerable to the predations of the warp and its foul denizens. The visions foretold the demise of the Imperium among thousands of psychic cataclysms, which was sobering indeed.
So,
You know, you'd think that demons invading the rock would be cause enough for Lion to wake the hell up.
nah. So, one of the things we got to talk about really quickly. The Dark Angels versus the Space Wolves. Because that is something that did happen. The Dark Angels did try to wipe out the Space Wolves and nearly succeeded. Which was the Changeling's plan all along.
Wrath of Magnus.
Yep, that is in the Wrath of Magnus. And everybody brings up like, how did a demon trick the Dark Angels when the Dark Angels are supposed to be like demon hunting extraordinaires with psychic creatures that can detect demons? And the answer is simple. It was the Changeling. The Changeling is the second most powerful demon amongst Tzeentch's collection.
Pretty much.
So
Sounds about right.
when something like the Changeling actually comes into play, think of a similarity would be like the Mask, who destroyed an entire solar system. Not a solar system, but destroyed an entire group of planets by dancing.
Yeah.
These things are crazy powerful.
That's interesting. I actually didn't know that the mask did that.
Yep, that comes from the 8th edition rulebook for Chaos Demons. The Mask, to appease Slaanesh, danced around an entire few planets until they lined up and then destroyed all of them and sacrificed all their souls to Slaanesh.
Nice.
Just to put into perspective just how powerful demons are, by the way. A single demon. This is why in 40k it's so essential to capture and train or destroy Psykers, because of their direct connection to the warp itself. In Codex Demons, for instance, one Psyker sneezed, essentially, and accidentally caused an outbreak of Nurgle's demons, because he himself couldn't master his own psychic abilities, and had a backlash which caused a demonic invasion which destroyed the entire planet.
Mm-hmm. Which is why Psykers are so dangerous.
Jeez.
Gotta catch 'em all.
Yep, that's why those two little Psykers in the Astartes series are not powerful at all.
No. They're not even... I'd classify them maybe as gamma level?
Not even.
I mean, there's not much lower to go after that.
Yeah, like, on the Psi ranking of 1 to 10, they're like a 1.
Not quite.
They couldn't kill one Space Marine.
Well, they did crunch a bunch of them.
No, they barely killed... Anyway, let's move on from that.
Alright.
The planet of the sorcerers.
Do the quote first?
Yeah, of course.
Let our world be a beacon of hope. Let it be shelter for the weary exile. Let it be salvation for the falsely damned. Let it be home for the lost. Let it be that here every forgotten soul can fulfill its true purpose. Attributed to Magnus the Red.
Sounds like a good guy quote.
Here's a question I've had. Slaanesh tortures, maims, and murders people and does other things that I can't say on the channel because I'd be demonetized. Khorne murders people, kills everybody, takes their head, yada yada yada. Nurgle destroys entire planets, kills entire species only to bring them back in an endless cycle of life and death. What the hell does Tzeentch do?
Give people hope.
So is Tzeentch the good guy?
No, he's just the chaos god of hope.
Wait, then how is that bad?
Think about the world that people live in, and imagine just how dangerous hope can be.
So how is that bad?
Because hope gets eternally crushed.
Yeah, but you're not dead.
True, but you'd probably wish you were.
I don't know. I see Tzeentch as kind of like the neutral ground of gods in 40k.
He is known as the Deceiver, so...
But he's also the changer of ways.
True. Doesn't say what type of change.
That's fair
Doesn't
enough.
say what kind of deception.
Yeah.
An outrage.
Doesn't say what kind of hope. Can't be false hope.
Hope is the first step on the road to disappointment.
See? The Imperium actively discourages it.
Anyway, let's move into this.
Alright. The planet of the Sorcerers has been the Thousand Suns base of operations for 10,000 years. After a ritual fueled by the deaths of 1 billion souls, it was ripped from its place in the warp and brought into Imperial space. Fun stuff.
Yeah, fun.
Yeah.
That's a word for it.
Yeah. A nightmare world, also known as Sortarius? I have no idea how to pronounce that name. The mere sight of the planet of the Sorcerers can drive mortals insane. It is a warped place, populated by the demonic, the abominable, and the evil. Although the planet now orbits a star, the hues of its skies change at random, bearing no resemblance to a pattern of seasons. Featureless plains of glass, constantly changing mazes of twisted mirrors, and swamps of mutating flesh adorn its landscape. Its ground is struck by sourceless lightning storms, and the biting winds that race across its surface rage with the screams of tortured souls. Sounds like a fun place.
Sounds like a video game level.
See, that sounds evil. Okay. Alright.
Right.
Let's continue.
Despite Sortarius' hellscape, which renders it inimical to normal life, those creatures born out of Singe's crazed imagination thrive on the planet. Packs of Zangors hunt among razor-sharp crags and jungles made up of twisted forms of failed devotees. Roaming demon engines lumber across storm-racked plains of crystal, preying upon one another in their own ecosystem. Rampaging horrors, screamers, and flamers pop randomly into existence or appear though spontaneously opening portals, slaughtering or mutating all that they find before evaporating as quickly as they arrived. Among all these beings live the Chaos Spawn, terrifying beasts as pitiable as they are repulsive to those who have some understanding of their genesis. Well, that's fun. That sounds like
Look. All I'm saying
a video game level.
All I'm saying is, I love this time of year when you see the migration of the demon engines. It kind of sounds like they're just animals.
I mean, kinda.
Like, they're just doing their thing. Like, these are just... I'm sorry, the roaming demon engines lumbering across the Storm-Racked. That to me is just really funny. Like, all I can picture is just the Defiler, like, majestically walking like the dinosaur from Jurassic Park, eating from a branch.
See, now I imagine a like a Thousand Suns or like a horror popping up. Crocky, what we have here is a soul grinder, one of the biggest demon engines around.
They move in herds. They do move in herds.
I guess we know what a collection of demon engines are now. It's a herd.
A herd of demon engines.
Also, for
anyone interested in what a Zangor is, it's a Tzeentch beastman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Which essentially, by this description, are nothing more than crew.
Kinda. Actually, yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, that's pretty analogous.
Because they're bird people.
Yeah. They're bird beasts that walk upright. But they're blue instead of green.
We have a Magnus. You have a what? We have a Magnus.
Right now, I just imagine Zangors in a blues band.
Gotta go faster. Gotta go faster. It's just Magnus chasing them.
Alright. Moving on. The tides of warp energy that drench the planet of the Sorcerers make the world itself a weapon in the hands of Magnus and the Sorcerers of the Thousand Suns. To them, its very surface is malleable, and for rivals and invaders alike, every step upon it can be more dangerous than walking the densest minefield. Swarms of gibbering demons are summoned at the will of the planet masters. Entire topographical features grow or die in moments, denying foes valuable cover or trapping them in place, while whole sects of Thousand Suns warriors are teleported to the most advantageous attacking positions. That sounds like cheating.
All I'm imagining is they send down a small party to this planet. And the planet is ever shifting. Wow, that's dangerous. Cyclonic torpedo. Hey, I got it.
Cyclonic torpedo gets eaten by a giant mouth that comes out of nowhere. Hey, stop cheating.
You see the orcs go down there, they start punching the planet into submission.
Wow.
Keep in mind, in the 4th edition Orc Codex, the orcs did beat this world.
It's true.
Someone who wasn't Tuska?
No, it was Tuska.
Ah, right.
Tuska the
Right.
Demon Killer. Possibly the best orc ever made.
Blessed be.
Blessed be
Praise
his name.
Right. Yet, for an enemy even to set foot on the planet of the sorcerers, they must be either extremely powerful or permitted to land by the Thousand Suns, though the latter very often leads to a worse fate. Invisible conjurations surround the planet, sucking any munitions fired upon it into the warp and dissipating powerful lasers into harmless rays of light. Illusory hexes cause attackers to believe that their weapons have hit their target when they have in fact proved wayward. Portals absorb city-leveling barrages and turn them back on the firers. Other spells and enchantments cause weapons to detonate while still on board attacking ships, or initiate the warp drives of enemy vessels, hurling them into the Empyrean without shielding. Magnus
Okay,
has done.
so you can't just exterminatus the planet.
Looks like they pretty much thought of what you thought and said, yeah, let's not have that. Magnus has had one world destroyed by invaders before. He will not allow it to happen again, and is rarely satisfied by simply warding off the foe. Okay, that makes sense for Magnus to do. To have him be unbelievably paranoid about losing Prospero again. Or the New World. Sortarius. Alright. Let's see. Ooh, we have a nice picture of Magnus there with his nipple horns.
I just love that he put, tips on them.
Yeah, why not?
Like he has tassels on his nipple horns.
Uh,
I mean, no one's gonna question him. He's a gigantic red man.
yeah. I mean, I know I wouldn't. Alright. Plans in motion. With Prospero and Sortarius finally united around his home star, Magnus began the next stage of his plans. Plans. Storming the Stygian sector with a colossal host, he seized a multitude of worlds across several systems. With these takings, he had the beginnings of a second empire, on the other side of the cicatrix maledictum to Prospero and Sortarius. Magnus also demanded that his scattered sons, many of whom had been fighting across the galaxy independently for millennia, be reunited. The Rahati, the most powerful of the Thousand Sons, accepted this task, though many did not answer their summons. Nearly a dozen sects were ritually reunited with Legion and Primarch. I wonder if Kion answered this.
I don't think so, because currently he's still on Terra.
Oh yeah, he was on Terra during the Gathering Storm.
And you can read about that in the Black Legion books.
Yes, and there's even a mention of him in the first Watchers of the Throne book, the I forget what his title is, but I think he's the Chancellor of the Estate Imperial, mentioned that he has a Black Legion sorcerer in chains in the Imperial dungeons for he mentions him in a paragraph, and it's Kion, but it's never name dropped. Also, I was kind of giddy about that.
So one thing that's kind of confusing me, wasn't the whole Wrath of Magnus, wasn't that the whole call to all the legionaries, his whole speech of some of you have remained loyal to me, some of you have betrayed me, but now is our time for revenge? Weren't they already called together?
Yeah, but shush.
Yeah, well, I mean, they can scatter after that, and then this happens.
After every single engagement, scatter!
Scatter bullet!
Man,
they're just they're like Dragon Balls. After they're used, they just fly off into a random direction.
Alright.
About right.
The sorcerers commanding each sect were welcomed with open arms before being gunned down in duplicitous attacks. What?
Huh.
Magnus had no interest in suffering their potential rebellions and wanted them punished for not serving him loyally over the previous 10,000 years. Okay. I did not see that one coming.
You must want to join the Deathwatch with all this friendly fire.
Alright. I need context for this. Let's see. Magnus also recognized that to rebuild his legion's numbers, he needed mortal followers. Pondering conditions within the Imperium, he knew that his fellow Psykers, the men and women he believed to represent the future of human race, were everywhere persecuted, exploited, or purged. Magnus envisioned his realm to be a haven from this, a sanctuary for those the Imperium would target, alienate, and destroy, and a place from which the superior would begin their war to overthrow the inferior. Thus, he sent upon the warp a siren call to those with psychic ability. Such a song would promise them safety, learning, and acceptance, if only they would come to the Crimson King. Those followers would not only make the Thousand Sons even more powerful, they would also form a society, the likes of which Magnus had always imagined for mankind. So he's just taking the next logical step then.
Yeah, seems about right.
Yeah.
Okay, no. He doesn't get to be like, this is literally that meme where the guy shoots the guy in the background and says, who killed Hannibal. This is like, he shoots a bunch of his own guys. We must rebuild our legion's numbers.
That is kind of what he just did.
Yeah, although the way this is being written, I have a feeling that there's a twist coming. A just as planned moment.
Gilliman shows up and beats him up again.
Alright, let the record show I have not read the rest of this, and I am envisioning a twist at the end for all these people that are coming. Alright. Magnus knew that there would be a high price. Not all would survive the perilous journey. Not all would have the intellect and mental robustness needed to handle the kind of power that would become available to them. For some, their purpose would be to honor the becoming a ritual sacrifice, the ultimate form of service to the Legion and to Siege. Others would become the privileged hosts of bound demons. These people would never get to enjoy the beauty that Magnus would create. But that was a cost deemed entirely worthwhile. Alright, there we go. Didn't even last a paragraph before the...
Immediately turns them into Chaos Spawn.
Not spawn, but demon hosts and sacrifice victims. Alrighty, let's see. These were but minor steps when compared to what Magnus envisioned for a galaxy at large. Even though more and more humans were being born with a psychic power, and those who already possessed it saw their capabilities swell, for Magnus this was not enough. The history of mankind was full of individuals who led their people out of backwards times and into the future. Magnus planned to be one to lead humanity to its ultimate potential, the final deliverer of the human race to what he saw as its destiny. Burying himself in text and lore that had been indecipherable to him 10 millennia before, he found new meaning in the strange symbols and forgotten languages. After all his learnings in the Eye of Terror, he could now read them like a native tongue. In this way, he learned of a ritual that could accelerate humanity's psychic surge 100-fold across an entire sector. Without hesitation, he ordered each of their Hadi to supply a cadre of sorcerers to invoke the necessary incantations, and to gather 999 volunteer mortals for the required sacrifice.
So do you think this is what happened to the Sisters of Battle book? Where the entire planet became Psykers?
I don't know. Maybe?
Interesting. It is interesting that he's kind of seeing himself as the Julius Caesar or the Genghis Khan or the Alexander the Great here.
Yes, pretty much. He seems to have delusions of grandeur.
So, John, we just finished the first section. What are you thinking so far?
So, as someone who generally doesn't actually care about chaos like Marines or Primarchs, this is actually making me like Mag.
You know, I feel much the same way. He almost feels like a good guy.
Right, and when you have something like that, like good villains are the villains who you agree with more than the quote unquote protagonist.
Hmm. And it actually
Like,
feels like Magnus, in his own twisted way, genuinely cares about the people that he's trying to save. Granted, he is still sacrificing people. So it's kind
who
of like
doesn't?
yeah, it is a double edged sword in this case, because he's willing to sacrifice some of his followers in order to. He's working for the greater good, essentially.
But here's the thing: you know what the difference between him and most other people? There's a one word in the last sentence that is, I think, the most important.
What?
Volunteer. 99 volunteer mortals.
Yeah, that is something. Like, he did not. He asked. Like, that's the crazy part of this whole thing.
I think he is the first character in 40k that I've seen who like performs sacrifices, and that goes for like the Imperial Guard and the in pretty much any other faction. This is the first time I've seen volunteer
Yeah.
like being a thing.
So, Victor, just so you know, we're talking about the first part of the book so far. And I have to say, I'm liking this way better than the Tyranid one that we just did. Blood of Ball.
Oh yes, that stuff is happening.
Yeah, Blood of Ball, it
It
just felt
stank.
like cleanup.
It was one sided because, like I said, Tyranids just don't have the personality to hold it.
Yeah,
Uh
like,
huh.
I feel like they should have just had the Genestealer cult to talk through the Tyranids.
Yeah.
Yeah, they should
Or
have.
just give them
And
a damn voice. Like, I know it's weird, but just say, Psychic Awakening Shenanigans. Tyranids have a voice now.
yeah, like they can speak. Like I said, do what they did in Dawn of War 2. Like just have them speak. Not they don't have to say much, but like have them speak a little bit to psychers. Like trying to like almost like they're tapping into psychic people's like trying to almost like pseudo synapse.
Yeah, yeah, like they connect to them because they're psychers. I
Yeah.
like the idea.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Victor, I want your opinion. What do you think about the fact that Magnus isn't forcing anybody? He's asking for 999 volunteers.
Oh yeah, that's new.
Yeah, that's a
It's kind of
compare this
crazy.
to Lords, for example. Yeah, and compare this to the Night Lords. Okay, when in their downtime, the Night Lords do all sorts of terrible things. Same with the World Agers. In Magnus's free time, he's reading, he's learning languages and history. Like that's not something. He's not being like cartoonishly evil. He's being an actual character.
Yeah, go figure.
I'm liking this actually.
Although here's a nice thing that I don't know if I've mentioned before. Actually, I've mentioned it before, just not on recording. If you check the galaxy map that follows every one of these, uh, on page 9, you can see a mention of something called the Haydex anomaly. That's from the Deathwatch RPG.
It is, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think I I think I was able to nail down 3 out of the 5 RPGs just on the galaxy map.
Yeah, but Victor, those aren't canon.
I'm sorry. What's that say next to the Halo stars? Is that the Calixis sector I see?
Yeah. Just,
Yeah.
just remember, things licensed by GW still take effect in the universe itself.
Yeah, go figure.
Also, I love how they have. If you look over to the near the where Golgotha is, they have one of the most dangerous, like violent entities known to like existence, and the Maelstrom.
You're talking about Necromunda, aren't you?
No,
Catachan.
Catachan.
Katachan. Katachan. The only planet to fall into the warp and emerge unscathed.
Yeah, I don't think Necromunda is shown on this map because.
I think
Oh yeah, Pacificus isn't shown because the zoom in on the Prosperin Rift is there in the way.
Yeah.
just wait till the Mechanicus sends Catachan the STC for the Doom soundtrack.
Nice.
Who would win in a fight, Doom Guy or a Space Marine?
Yeah.
Doom Guy? Because he's Doom Guy?
Yeah.
It's
What a
like Tom.
Space Marine!
Just remember, Doom Guy wouldn't care who would win in a fight because that doesn't involve killing demons.
Alright, let's get back to the book, though.
Alright, Sons of Titan. Want me to handle the quote
Actually,
first?
I do want to point this out really quickly, just because I do love the breakdown of military forces.
Oh?
So, the Prosperin Rift is a rift with war across the multiple systems. Yada 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 goes into that. It has Imperial armies and then it has Chaos armies. Now, I love reading what the Chaos armies call themselves because they're so cool. The Lore Host, the Master of the Crystalline Serpent, House. House. That's a Titan household.
Night House.
Yeah. House.
Change Fires, 9 Scintillating Legions. Infernal Madness, 9 Scintillating Legions. Clade of Change, War Cult. Denizens of Slop Tube 13.
Slop Tube.
Oh no, that sounds like a Slanesh place.
Also, I think you passed by thrall bands for the lore hosts.
Oh yeah, there.
Yeah,
Mutants
thrall
outnumbered.
bands.
Infernal bands?
Ramesisian Liberators? Wow.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, Zang, they're called a warflock? That's fantastic.
Yeah, they're called Warflocks.
I think... Wait a minute,
There
the
are
Upsilon...
Titan legions here.
Yeah, there are Mechanicus.
Yeah, Chaos Mechanicus. Talons of Change. Wow, they have quite a bit here.
Oh, they
The
also-
Hell Cannonades?
I know, 47 artillery regiments?
This is also
Ooh.
interesting. Disciples of Eternal Flame. Unknown number, but doesn't actually tell us what it is. That could be Chaos Sisters.
That sounds like Chaos Cultists, honestly.
Yeah?
Magisters of the Burning Amethyst, 19 warbands, so that sounds like...
Chaos Sisters as well.
Oh, hey,
Now,
the,
keep in mind,
yeah.
we are guessing that part. That is not a guarantee. But let's see what they got for the Imperial side. The Dark Angels, 1 reinforced company, so that is just 1 company. That's 100 Marines, 120 Marines. A Grey
Grey
Knights,
Knight.
1 reinforced Brotherhood. That's again 100 Marines.
Same thing, yeah.
It's only 100 though, because they don't have the numbers to exceed that. Let's see. We have the Death Hunters. So that's 400 Marines. The Raven Covenant, which is 5 demi companies, so that's 50 Marines. 50 per demi company. So that's what, 250 Marines?
Yep.
Viper's Penitent, 3
Viper's
Vanguards.
Penitent. That's cool. So that's just Vanguards. That's the first company strike forces.
Right.
Order
Ooh, we
of
have
the
sisters.
Silver Veil, Order of the Sacred Rose. So Sisters of Battle took part in this. Then we have Guard.
What's a preceptory? Is that 1,000?
That's 1,000 sisters.
So 7,000 and 9,000 sisters, bringing up to 16,000 sisters.
That's a lot.
Up the band counter.
Then we have a couple of Imperial Guard regiments. The
Wahikan Raiders.
Yeah, Wahikan Raiders. I like that name.
Vastat Guards, 27 infantry regiments. Takarn Iron Fists, 46 armored regiments. House Derthos, 3 lances. House Dunstan, 5 lances. So, knight households.
Mm-hmm. Then we have Canticles. We have
Oh, wait, there's more.
There's even more sisters here.
The Chancel Suppression, Dragon Spears, 8 companies, Knights of Doom, 3 Crusades. Is that?
That's 1,000 Marines.
Wow. Crimson Raptors, 4 Damning Companies, Order of the Bloody Rose, 11 Preceptories. That's 11,000 sisters.
Yeah, they committed a lot to this.
Order of the Blessed Martyr, 8 preceptories. Chancillian Cannoneers, 35 artillery regiments.
Okay, hang on. Whoa. We're not just going to blow past the Cannoneers. That is an amazing name.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Chancillian Musketry, 65 infantry regiments. What?
I think I found my guard regiment that I want to build.
I mean, you give them all last locks and you're done.
Yeah, I love it.
Chancillian Lightfoot, 25 infantry companies. That's probably scout companies. Praetorian Hussars.
Praetorians.
Praetorian Hussars, 18 armored regiments.
Well,
House Bramica.
They left Age of Sigmar and came here.
We the Knights of Platonic.
House Bramica, 2 lances. House Hawkwood, 6 lances.
Now that I actually know something about Hawk. That is a they swear fealty to House Hawk Shroud.
Ooh, nice.
It is a vassal house.
And then we have the Upsilon Kappa Severance. That's a bunch of Mechanicus stuff, which is we have the True Believers of Zao, 1,200 macroclades. I think a macroclade is 100 Skitari. I need to check that.
We can check that in a bit. Let's continue down the list.
Beholders of the Cog Change, 1800 macroclades. Legio Incurvos, 1 Titan Legion. Legio Inardescus. Wow, that's a wonky name. 1 Titan Legion. Disciples of the Eternal Flame, unknown number. Magisters of the Burning Amethyst, 18 warbands. Talons of Change, 9 Scintillating Legions. Infallible Duplicity, Subservive Division. So, is that Dark Mechanicus then?
That is Dark Mechanicus.
So, one thing that's kind of got me, Towns of Change sounds like very Zinchian, but 9 Scintillating Legion sounds more Slaaneshi.
Maybe.
Alright, so, with the numbers there.
With the numbers done, move on to Sons of Titan.
Alright, so, take on, Victor.
Here's the quote. I see an ardent warrior, a fight eternal, a never-fading hope, lost in the empiric tides, a wanderer never forgotten but seldom seen. He stands before a Cyclopean king, defiant but with dread in his soul. Attributed to Lucian Adantor, Prognosticar. Who is he talking about?
He's talking about Magnus.
No. The Magnus is the Cyclopean king, and it says he stands before a Cyclopean king. An Argent warrior? Is this Drago?
Yeah.
It might be Drago.
Lost in empiric tides? That sounds like Kaldor Drago.
A wanderer never forgotten but seldom seen. Yeah,
that's Drago.
Wait, he stands before a Cyclopean king, defiant but with dread in his soul? Kaldor Drago, afraid of something.
Afraid of Magnus? When he, didn't he...
No, that was Mortarion.
Yeah, he took down Mortarion, who casually took down Samus, by the way.
Yeah.
And who also took down the Khan.
Yeah. Why is he scared of Magnus? Kaldor Drago, bodied Mortarion like a...
Yeah, Mortarion when Mortarion was a demon Primarch.
So it could be that... where Drago used his psychic advantage to take down Mortarion, that advantage is gone here.
I forget. I think there was an audiobook that handled that story.
We'll have to find that.
I remember there. If I remember the story correct, it went something like the former Supreme Grandmaster of the Grey Knights kind of softened Mortarion up, and Drago was able to finish him off. I think that's how they rewrote that, because I think that was one of the first stories of Matt Ward that got rewritten. Enough about that. Sons of Titan. The Grey Knights have guarded the Imperium from chaos for 10,000 years. An elite brotherhood, they are some of the most mysterious of the Emperor's warriors. Few know of their existence, and those who do know little of the truth. Right.
Few know of their existence, except for everybody that took part in Gathering Storm, everybody that took part in the Imperial attack on Terra, everybody... They're a secret. Shh.
It's a secret. Shh.
I've noticed that what the boldest hasn't been brought up at all, which is interesting.
I think he gets brought up in this. I think. We'll see. His superpower is that nobody remembers him. Alright. The Speculum Infernus, an archaic device of mysterious provenance held on Titan, had remained silent for years. This pleased the prognosticators, those of the Grey Knights responsible for tracking demonic incursions. As the last time the device had spun into life, it had foreshadowed Magnus Loret's return to the galaxy, the devastation of the Fenris system, and the loss of scores of Grey Knight warriors who had battled against the Crimson King's hordes. Alright, so that's just Wrath of Magnus stuff.
I kind of feel bad for Magnus now because he's going to get all superpowered, go back to Fenris to finish the job, and just see Gaskell Fortnite dancing on top of the planet.
Oh, that's funny. Wait, Gaskell actually goes to Fenris?
Later.
Oh, right.
That's for later.
I didn't actually know that.
I shall take my revenge against those damned wolves.
Wow!
Sees Gaskell slam into him. Just as planned! Magnus, did you plan this? Yes! Yes, I did.
And then everything gets shadowy, and he turns around and sees a big attack moon heading for him.
Oh, well, balls.
I miss the attack moons.
A whole bunch of orcs just shouting "wow" as they write it down.
Just as planned.
As planned. Alright. As dark as those days were, the Imperium's fortunes had worsened even further. Abaddon the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade had been more effective than any of his campaigns prior. Cadia, long the gatekeeper holding back the War Master, had been destroyed, leading to the cataclysmic emergence of the Great Rift. Hundreds of worlds had fallen. Some were drowned in deluges of warp-spawned horrors that massacred all in their path, while many others fell to faithless rebellion or collapsed under the weight of traitor assaults. Throughout, the followers of Chaos slaughtered and enslaved unimaginable numbers. The Astronomicon had been temporarily extinguished, and, even once its light had been restored to the region now designated as Imperium Sanctus, thousands of Imperial worlds remained cut off in the darkness beyond the rift. So yeah, that's just the Gathering Storm in a nutshell.
Alright, first of all, I gotta say it. Catachan only has 3 seasons, or not Catachan, Katie only has 3 seasons because they don't know what it is to fall.
Nice.
Cadia stands.
He stands.
Planet broke before the guard did. Alright.
Look, the Black Templar broke before the guard did.
Yeah. Although, I do like how Cadians kind of... how the entire planet of Cadia had character development, i.e. they used to be like the best of the best, and then that whole thing got shattered because now they can't if they were to swag about with the other guard regiments, all they would have to do is just point out, so how's your planet?
Yeah. Although Cadians don't just come from Cadia, they come from the Cadian sector.
True, but it's kind of
gone.
Hurts. It kind of hurts to have your homeworld kind of blown up. Yeah.
In one of the books, I believe it is actually Cadia Stands, someone actually does this, Victor, and I think it was a Vestorian firstborn takes a shot at a Cadian for their planet blowing up, and a Catachan literally vibe checks them.
Yeah, I can see that. Which is kind of funny, because if you're running an only war campaign, you will have to specify to the Cadian, if it's a Cadian regiment, whether Cadia has fallen or not, or whether they know of it or not. Ooh. Imagine being able to drop that on your players.
Cadia's haunted.
Moon's on it. Grabs plasma gun. Alright. The Grey Knights were stretched thin. Their warriors raced to meet threats along the entire length of a cicatrix maledictum. Planets too tainted to save were purged in their entirety, with billions slain to prevent the spread of chaos. Hordes of demons were broken and their diabolical masters banished back into the warp. Many worlds and their peoples were saved thanks to the Grey Knights' bravery and initiative, though very few citizens would ever learn anything of their mysterious saviors. Throughout all this, the Sons of Titans kept an ever-vigilant watch over the Forsare system, home to the Thousand Suns homeworld of Prospero. Oh, that's nice to know what the Prospero system is called. Nice. They had failed to prevent Sortarius' manifestation in that forbidden region, and were determined not to fail again. All felt a burning desire to see the blasphemous presence utterly annihilated, and as we've read earlier, that is a bit difficult. Alright, let's see.
Sorry,
it was known.
I had to sneeze.
Oh, right.
No, but I did want to say something before we moved on from that. All I can imagine is the planet's just like, come on, come and get me, come and get me, come and get me, come on, come on. Just keeps poking against them with like a stick.
I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you.
Can we kill it? No. Can we kill it? No.
No.
You know what? I think it would do the Grey Knights some good to adopt the Deathwatch's system of like watch fortresses.
I think they have something like that, I believe. I'm not an expert on the Grey Knights, but I think Addie would be able to tell me.
Well, don't the Grey Knights use the eyes of the Emperor?
I don't think so.
That's a shame.
The Talons of the Emperor do.
Yeah, the Talons do. And I know some Inquisitors do. John, why don't you explain what the eyes of the Emperor are for our viewers?
Of course. So, when a custodian either is determined or self-determines that they are unfit for their service, and keep in mind, this could mean like their reactions are off by 1/100th of a second than normal, they will hand their weapons over to the Armory Imperialis. They will basically give up their armor and more gear, and set out to become Eyes of the Emperor, independent agents acting as assistants to the Inquisition and basically being the eyes of the Emperor, giving information back to the Talons of the Emperor, like the custodians, the Captain General, that they wouldn't be. They can be marked, usually wear black cloaks to kind of keep their appearance hidden, although it doesn't really explain how people don't notice the 8-foot tall, 9-foot tall gentleman.
You would be shocked how much a robe can do for you.
That is true.
I mean, a lot of people, like, I'm pretty sure that some Marines have disguised themselves as either big servitors or as small ogrins.
But yeah, so the Eyes of the Emperor come from the custodians who, like I say, it could be anything from like blowing off a leg and not, because it's like, oh, they could get cybernetics. Well, cybernetics can malfunction. Cybernetics are affected by haywire, things like that. That's not acceptable. Perfection is required by the Legio Custodes.
Yeah.
And what book is that from?
Believe it's one of the.
I think it's the Adeptus Custodes Codex.
Yes,
it's in the It's in the Codex, and I believe it's mentioned in that book you sent me for my trip, Victor. The one that has the Custodian and the Inquisitor.
That would be Carrion Throne.
Yep, the Carrion Throne, a really good book.
It feels like every book that has Throne in it is set on Terra, but they do. All right, let's see. It was known to all of the Grey Knights that the longer Magnus was able to maintain his monstrous grip on the region, the more powerful he would grow. 1,000,001 fiendish schemes surely flowed through his mind, and the fruition of any one of them would be a terrible bane to the Imperium. The Grey Knights knew perhaps more than any others the truth of the Imperium's frailty. Should Magnus continue his efforts unmolested, the Emperor's domains might never recover. That the Demon Primarch would attempt to rebuild his legion was seen as inevitable, and the Grand Masters agreed that the Crimson King was capable of much worse.
I I wonder if Magnus is aware of the Terminus decree.
Probably not. Although I doubt we'll ever see what that is.
Imagine if he ever got into the vaults of the Deathwatch.
The Watch Fortresses? Yeah, like, oh man, can you imagine if he, like the Omega Vault?
Yeah, if he got into the Omega Vault. I
Yeah.
mean, not just anybody can walk into there.
No, Inquisitor Quist is probably one of the most. She's up there with Otara Sarin when it comes to I don't care that you're a space marine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. The message that Magnus had dispatched along the currents of the warp, calling to those with psychic gifts, had not escaped the Grey Knight's attention. Each of their brothers had heard it in his own way. Having passed through the rituals of detestation, not one son of Titan was persuaded by Magnus's beguiling propaganda. Had the portents of the message not been so dire and less obviously appealing to the untrained and vulnerable mortals for whom it was intended, some of the Grey Knights might even have deemed it unworthy of their attention. I mean, yeah, it makes sense that the Grey Knights would pick up on this, because everyone who's a psyker is supposed to hear it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining some of them just go like this. Oh, it's just Magnus. I don't want to answer his calls. Magnus is like, why don't they ever answer?
You never write.
Magnus is just a nerd trying to throw a party.
Wait, just imagine he sends out a second message to Castellan Crow, and his demon sword's like, "Hey, go away! I can't dip."
I called dibs.
I called dibs on the Grey Knight.
Castellan Crow's like, "Shut up!
Shut up!
I can't corrupt the demons. I can't corrupt the Grey Knights." Laughs in Tyranid.
Ah. All right.
By the way, in the book Uncorruptible, a Grey Knight was corrupted by a Genestealer.
Yeah. Wasn't it just mind control?
Yep.
Yeah. So it wasn't true possession. Alright. Magnus's amassing of followers only confirmed the Grey Knight's suspicions, and it was with cold inevitability that the Speculum Infernus span into life again. The prognosticars gave their interpretation of the omens revealed, and a few Grey Knights were surprised by what they heard. With the empiric balance thrown into tumult across a vast swathe of space into the Forsari system, demonic incursions plagued multiple systems. Worse still, the Speculum Infernus indicated a growing dark power on Sartarius, the planet of the sorcerers. However, what crimes the Crimson King was planning and committing, it was impossible to determine. Such was the strength of the arcane shroud that veiled the Prosperan Rift. Nevertheless, the prognosticars advised Grandmaster Voldus that this threat was a threat to be investigated in force. Voldus agreed. The Grandmaster selected Brother Captain Arvan Stern and the Third Brotherhood to be the focal point of the task force that would bring war to Magnus and the planet of the sorcerers. Stern and his warriors had fought the Crimson King and his host of traitors, mutants, and demons before. They yearned to finally exorcise Magnus's baleful presence and earn the redemption for failing to prevent him from achieving his aims in the Fenris system. Quick note, Voldus is the Grand Master of the Third Brotherhood, so he's sending someone else to do his stuff for him with his own brotherhood.
I'm actually happy that Stern got mentioned. I didn't think that he'd ever be brought up ever again.
Yeah, he's from Wrath of Magnus, isn't he?
He's from Wrath of Magnus, but he's also from the good Grey Knight books, Sons of Titan. He's he actually when it came to destroying a cult summoning, he used Victor. You'll appreciate this. He used thunderous charge to get through.
Nice.
And shoulder checked a demon.
Nice. Quick question, Knight. This is totally unrelated, mostly, but do you know who Brother Captain Hyperion is?
The name sounds familiar, but I can't put a name to a place.
He's from, I believe, an Grey Knight book by Aaron Dembski Bowden. I forget what it's called.
Isn't he the one where they have to bring a kid across the galaxy?
He used to be a kid from the Ravener books.
Yeah.
He went on to become a pyromancer for the Grey Knights.
Was he in Eye of Night?
No, he wasn't in Eye of Night, unfortunately.
Yeah, so the only Grey Knight books I've read, besides like a little bit of the Codex, is Sons of Titan and the Grey Knights Omnibus, and Eye of Night.
If none of those were written by ADB, then no, he didn't
it was
show up.
David Annandale and Ben Counter, respective.
Well, disrespectfully for Ben Counter.
David is an okay writer.
Yeah, David's good. Not the Ben
Counter. David has hits and misses, I would say, because my goodness, was one of his some of his Horus Heresy books are dreadfully boring.
Didn't he write the Dark Angels once?
No, that's not him. That was Chris Raitt, I think.
Because everybody says those are boring, and I absolutely love them.
I disagree. I think the Dark Angels stories are really good. Although they didn't finish it.
Anyway, let's get back to this.
A number of paladins and purifiers were attached to Stern's command, their unique skills and experience deemed essential to strike into the heart of Magnus's realms. But even with these reinforcements, both Voldus and Stern knew that the staggering power of a Grey Knight's Brotherhood was not enough to defeat Magnus on his own home world. Aid would be needed to ensure victory. After many hours of discussions and ruminations, it was agreed that Stern would approach the Dark Angels.
Okay, all right. Let's picture that for a second. What about the Ordo Hereticus? They're really good at fighting demons. Nah, not them. We don't like them. All right. What about the Silent Sisterhood? The who?
Who?
Nah. What about the Custodians? I'm sure we can gather like a few Custodians to help fight alongside us.
Nah.
All right.
Oh, wait. Who else got messed up on Fenris? That's right.
How about the Exorcist?
How's about the Exorcists? Literally a chapter devoted to exorcising demons. Nah. Those jerks.
Who else lost on Fenris? Oh, that's right. The Dark Angels.
Hey, who owes us a favor? Who has like a dark hidden secret that we can use as blackmail against them?
The Space Wolves.
The Dark Angels? What about the Deathwatch? Nah, no one likes them.
Nah, no one likes them. Right. Few know of the... God damn it. I keep saying it. Few know of the Grey Knight's existence, and fewer still have the strength to aid them in their fight. Stern had fought alongside the Dark Angels at Fenris, however, and had witnessed their implacable resolve and fury in battle firsthand. He knew that they too had much cause to seek vengeance against the Thousand Sons and their Primarch, recalling that the two sides had clashed in the horrendous conflict in the Stygius sector. So yeah, that was just laying out what we were joking about.
I think the Dark Angels owe us a favor. Yeah, it's about right.
Yeah, let's call it in. Alright. The Dark Angels were bloodied, angry, and determined. Grandmaster Voldus had initially cautioned against such alliance, citing the Dark Angels' untrustworthy nature. Stern, too, had held misgivings, but argued that fighting alongside the secretive Sons of Caliban would only give the Grey Knights greater insight into their manner of making war. With the decision made, a choir of dozens of Titan's most powerful astropaths was gathered to send the Grey Knight's missive to the Rock. Alright, so...
Sorry, the message got to Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Sorry, wrong. You sent it to the wrong Rock.
Rock the Dwayne Johnson? Alright. Okay, so... Nobody is really wants to trust the Dark Angels, but they do it anyway.
Plot demands.
Yeah, plot demands.
Wait, if we can't trust the Dark Angels, what about the Blood Angels getting attacked by Tyranids? Should we go and help them? Nah, the Deathwatch said they'll help.
They didn't. So, something I want to bring up in the artwork that's right under this. Do you see the one Grey Knight who's just like solo moding the giant like axe and sword wielding demon in the center?
Uh-huh.
What's with the giant like light claymore.
I think that's a brother captain, I think.
That sword is bigger than he.
I know, they have gigantic two-handed swords.
What page
Or-
is that on?
11. It's the,
yeah. Oh my god, that sword is gigantic.
Also, here's another question. Now, hear me out, because I know this can be done. Why don't they put bolters on their Nemesis Force halberds?
I don't know. I think because they all have wrist-mounted storm bolters
They
instead.
should freaking have hurricane bolters and centurion suits.
Guess they do. Well, then again, the Centurions weren't really a thing back in 30k.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
Hey, look, here's what they're going to do. They're going to go to the Dark Angels. Can you help us? No. Please? No. We'll let you ride in the Dread Knight. Okay, we're in.
You see Asmodai? Whoa, 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 whoa. For how long?
Now I just imagine when Call came out with the Invictus War suits, the Dread Knight, the guys who put the Dread Knight, it's like, what the hell?
What the hell, guys? Alright. Moving on to the Sons of Caliban. Or do I want to do the sidebar first?
Let's do the sidebar first.
Crossing the Rift. Communication from the Imperium Sanctus to the Imperium Nihilus is nightmarishly difficult. Whilst rumors of temporary or partial routes in various locations persist, few have been identified as being remotely close to reliable, and journeying through these regions of space remains arduous. The only real alternative is the use of astropathic choirs. These bodies of sanctioned psychers communicate with counterparts around the galaxy, no simple task even before the Great Rift tore it asunder. Sending each message can be an acutely difficult undertaking for the astropaths, who are vulnerable to the malign forces inhabiting the warp that hunger insatiably for mortal souls. The astropaths assembled by the Great Knights to make contact with the Dark Angels had centuries of service between them. Quick note on that, astropaths usually don't last that long. So it must be a big astropathic choir. Alright. But the message had to be forced through the warp to pierce the rift, and each knew that the task could kill them. They knew also what could happen if they failed, and all took their places in the relay chamber without hesitation. Located at the top of one of the citadels of Titan's many towers, the relay chamber was a small space, adorned with dense layers of the most powerful hexagrammatic wards known to mankind. Censers billowed aromatic incense that bathed those within in blessed fumes. When Stern gave the order, the choir began its work. Over the course of many hours, every astropath was racked with terrible pain. Blood poured from their noses and ears. Many succumbed to fits and spasms, limbs snapping and breaking into sickeningly unnatural precisions. Several died of catastrophic cranial hemorrhage. All were killed. Even the tower itself buckled from the otherworldly pressures and violently fluctuating empiric energies, eventually collapsing in on itself. Stern observed all of this from another tower, not once averting his eyes. The bold endeavor was the astropath's finest moment, and he would have it witnessed, but he mourned them not, for they had done their duty.
And as he stayed on, he let out a singular yikes.
He's like, oof.
The council has awarded you Supreme Grand Master with but a single yikes.
I see your yikes and raise you a big oof. Alright. Let's go to some Dark Angels then. Sons of Caliban. Somber and serious, the Dark Angels are a secretive brotherhood. A first founding chapter, they have defended the Imperium since the fabled times of the Great Crusade, but their history is not an entirely noble one. Thus, they deem both themselves and their successors the unforgiven, and fight endlessly for redemption. More secretive chapters. I think that's the theme running through this.
Mm-hmm.
Alright. Let's see. The Dark Angels chapter that the Grey Knight's message eventually reached was a shaken one. Reports told of the Fallen mustering in numbers previously thought impossible. The Rock, once thought inviolable, had been befouled not by not one but two demonic invasions, and the fact that the first of these had only been resisted with the aid of the Space Wolves and the Grey Knights brought the Dark Angels great shame. Interesting.
Hey, sorry about, nearly killing your chapter.
Can you help us out?
Can you help defend our rock? Why don't you guys just, take over a planet? Yeah, rock is cool.
I got a rock.
This is a really nice and shiny rock. Can you please help the Grey Knights? Yeah, sure.
We like shiny things.
We also keep getting cease and desist letters from the Orks for copyright infringement.
It's spelled different. Wow.
Don't think Orcs can read Low Gothic.
Depends on it.
They write back, it's spelt different, and send it to them. The Orcs write back, I can't read. Alright, let's get to this.
Alright.
When that booty kill a man.
Had returned, Grandmaster Azrael had feared the worst. The secret the Unforgiven had kept for 10,000 years would finally be their undoing. He had been wrong, as the Primarch Reborn had been plunged into a war of such scale that even he lacked the time to research their history. Instead, a new problem had surfaced. The Primaris Space Marine reinforcements sent by Guilliman, whilst having the Lion's gene seed and bearing the Dark Angel's colors, had not gone through the chapter's initiations, and were thought to represent an extreme security risk. The word colors doth not a Dark Angel's make were not uncommonly heard amongst the rank-and-file battle brothers on the Rock. Nonetheless, the Primaris Space Marines performed exceptionally well in battle, and Azrael faced the nagging question of when one would be initiated into the Inner Circle. As fate had it, the decision was made for him in a manner he had not expected.
So, interesting thing about this is you can see the Dark Angel's hesitance about this. But in the Gathering Storm books, Guilliman is fully aware of the Fallen, because the Fallen literally help him. Yeah,
the Cypher literally helps Roboute Guilliman escape from the...
So, they might not know that. The Dark Angels might not know that.
Nope.
Guilliman probably just looks at it like, really? Really?
That's your secret?
That's
now...
it? What if the White Scars have had more fall?
Rest in peace, Hakeem. Now, one thing I want to mention that I think a lot of people forget, the Dark Angels, like it says they are wary of them, but notice they still took them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, everybody needed them. Because the Gathering Storm takes a toll on almost everybody. So yeah, the Primaris project was kinda really necessary. Alright. So, who is this mysterious individual that gets inducted into the Inner Circle? And here we meet...
Mariachi's ready.
Master Lazarus of the 5th Company, a member of the Death Wing, had been mortally wounded in the Stygius sector. In response, apothecaries and librarians with access to Archmago's Call's technology had borne him across the Rubicon Primaris, deeming it the only way to save his life. Even a dreadnought chassis would have been insufficient. Lazarus and the battered remain of his company had fought in the Stygius sector for many months against the changed hosts of Thange that threatened to overrun that vast region of space until they finally returned to the Rock for rearmament, repair, and reinforcement. So here we have Master Lazarus reborn.
So a lot of people, they get really upset about this because they're like, oh, even a dreadnought couldn't save them, without realizing that dreadnoughts cause their pilots excruciating pain, barely any consciousness, and the parts that they are conscious for, they're in agony.
Yeah, that's why they kept sleeping all the time.
Yep. So the Rubicon Primaris offering a different way to come back and regrow your limbs, as seen with what is a dude guy McFisty boy of the Ultramarines called?
Right.
Because Marinus Colgar has his limbs back apparently.
Yeah.
Now I don't have a source for that, so I do apologize about that, and I am going off of rumors. So until I read that story for myself, which we will be getting to soon, But the Rubicon Primaris has been shown to be easier on the body than the Dreadnought chassis.
Right. All right. Scant days after the Fifth Company's return, one of the rock's astropathic choirs received a message. For hours they convulsed and writhed as their bodies were flooded with agony. Only one of their number retained any kind of consciousness, and several were driven insane before being given the Emperor's mercy. The astropath that still stood was thrust before Azrael, Ezekiel, and Lazarus, the only Dark Angel's senior officers present on the rock. She was a quivering wreck, too weak to even hold her staff. It clattered to the marble floor, the echoes reverberating around the cold council chamber, as she collapsed to her knees. Azrael asked her what she saw, and her response moved randomly between mutters, stammers, and ravings. She spoke of a winged monarch, a devastated world reborn, the sixth planet, boulders made of eyes, obelisks of crystal, monsters, demons, nightmares, a shield of ivory and crimson, golems of blue, red, and gold. The Ouroboros, a warped tome pierced with a sword of silver, a terrifying sense of doom, burning hatred, and ominous eager anticipation.
So none of them helped her up?
Nope. Doesn't sound like it.
Wow.
Dang.
I'm adding that to the bend counter. We're at 3.
I don't think she died.
I know she didn't die, but that's still incredibly rude.
Right. It took the officers hours to agree on an interpretation of what the astropath saw. Though they could not be sure, it appeared that the Grey Knights had discovered something about Magnus, the Thousand Suns, and the planet of the sorcerers. Lazarus had seen what horrors those traitors had inflicted upon the Fenrir systems, and hated them for it. They had transformed part of the Stygius sector into the stuff of nightmares, slaying scores of his warriors. He declared that he would heed the Grey Knight's call. Magnus would bleed. Azrael and Ezekiel, it's written differently than Abaddon, had doubts, however. Why would the Grey Knight summon them, especially after the events in the Fenris system? What had the Sons of Titans gleaned from their time upon the rock? What did their psychic intuitions defect of the fortress monastery's dark history while fighting within it? What mysteries might they wish to explore and solve in their ceaseless mission against the archenemy? Man, the Dark Angels are paranoid.
Yeah, that's kind of their thing.
Yeah.
Bad idea.
Right.
Man, imagine if they could have girlfriends. Jesus Christ.
They probably can't.
No,
They're
not gonna stop them.
Imagine a Dark Angel's mind when he's like, he sees his girlfriend pouting for a second and goes, "Babe, what's wrong?" And she goes, "It's nothing." That would drive him insane for like 3 years.
And Victor, you say they can't, but now they can say, the Ultramarines have one.
Ha. Yeah, well, they're not the Ultramarines, are they?
I mean, they do have courage, and they do have honor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'm not here to discriminate. Space Marines are asexual, so it doesn't even matter.
Yeah. Alright. Azrael was not immune to the desire for revenge. Azrael, however, only he knew just how deeply the forces of chaos had struck the rock, and what the Changeling had done. I don't actually know what the Changeling did. I mean, he did deceive them, right? And that was about it?
He let loose a very particular prisoner.
Oh, snap. Is that why Luther got out?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. I almost swore. Nor could he forget the Grey Knight's action in keeping his chapter's fortress monastery secure. Neither he nor Ezekiel were completely surprised by what they heard. The Unforgiven had been sharing information with their brothers about the galaxy's events and the wars they had waged. Of late, many anomalous events and patterns of unusual psychic activity had been reported. If the Unforgiven had identified this, it was impossible that a creature with the immense intelligence and psychic power of Magnus had not also observed it. What foul acts the Crimson King could admit with such phenomena occurring in the galaxy, none dared guess. What was certain was that those acts had to be prevented from coming to fruition. Right.
Yeah, that seems fair.
Yeah, it's a fair leap of logic. All right. Azrael knew that he could not leave the message unanswered, but nor could he ignore the dangers posed by working closely with the Grey Knights. Thus, he decided that Lazarus and his fifth company would respond, but they would not go alone. A complement of Deathwing and Ravenwing would also join the strike force, their orders being, in part, to assess whether the Sons of Titans knew anything at all of Caliban's secrets. Yeah, they probably know all of them.
The Deathwing are so cool.
The Deathwing
Yeah.
are really cool.
Especially Deathwing Knights. They're so freaking cool with their big, like, their tower shields that are the size of them, and their big, like, triple, like, headed maces or flails.
Yeah.
I do really love them. And they're actually really good. Especially
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, especially with this book. Alright, want me to handle that strange message?
Yep.
I have a voice for the picture up top. It's really creepy. Alright, let's see. Addendum 049-D. Vox recording intercepted. Priority Erythian Maxima. Today is the day I'm freed. Today I escape my misery, my torment. Praise glorious day. Now I see the end to my time of pain, and it will be soon. Once I believed myself cursed, yet now I am blessed. The red monarch, with his wings of an angel, armor of gold, and the strength of a lion, calls out to me. He values me. He wants me to be free, to be safe, to use my gifts to their fullest potential. He only asks that I go to him, and so I shall. I shall give him my strength, my courage, my all. No one shall stop me. No man-at-arms, no starship captain, no authorities, no rules. Nothing that exists only to suppress and quash what it means to be me. My journey begins, my master. Only begins today. To find everything you've promised. I ask only one thing. Please wait for me. My soul is yours but for one day in your glorious paradise. End recording.
I'm starting to think the Imperium's the bad guy.
Are we the baddies?
Are we the baddies? But skulls.
No, like that guy, like, jokes aside with the voice and all that, like, he is so freaking happy to, like, and he's not saying he wants to, like, he's here to, like, burn the Imperium, you know, though I know the reasons for which he's, like, it's not like all I ever wanted was the truth. He's just wanting to, like, he's just happy to be, like, to feel safe and, like, feel like he belongs. Like, that's good stuff. Like, that's something someone who's, like, a good person wants.
Yeah, that's the scary part. It's hope.
Jeez.
See? Told you.
With that, I think we're going to end part 1 of the Ritual of the Damned.
We only have what?
So,
Oh wait, we have a bunch left.
So, be sure to join us for next week's episode where we continue the Ritual of the Damned and get to the... Well, there's no conclusion to any of the Psychic Awakening books aside from these... the first one, which is interesting. But we get to find out more about the mysterious Lazarus, as well as Magnus's full plan. So join us next week. I want to thank you two for joining me.
Hey.
No problem.
And if you enjoyed this video and are enjoying the series, please check out all the links in the description down below. There you can follow me on all sorts of social media. You can also check out my Patreon. Patreon goes a long way to help supporting the channel. As always, I'm NornQueenAlexis. I love you guys. Bye.